Just a disclaimer before we start this video. I just wanted to let everybody know, not the best at pronouncing Renaissance age people's names. So their names are going to be absolutely slaughtered in this video. But I hope you enjoy, and I hope it's not too boring because I try to make it the least boring as possible. Anyways, moving on. We're going to get into the Renaissance men. Starting off with Galileo. Galileo had a wife named Marina Gamba and 2 daughters and a son who were actually illegitimate. Illegitimate meaning he wasn't supposed to have them because he was not married to the person that had his children. And back then that was a really big problem, so I wouldn't recommend doing that back then because you probably would have got hung or something like that. Anyways, he was born on February 15th, 1564 and died January 8th, 1642 at the age of 77. He was an Italian natural philosopher, astronomer, and a mathematician who made fundamental contributions to science of motion, astronomy, and strength of materials, and to the development of the scientific method. He pioneered the scientific revolution that flowered into the work of Isaac Newton. Galileo was a professor at the University of Padua in Venice, Italy, when he used a telescope and invented the planet Mars in 1608. June 1633, Galileo was put on trial and accused by the Holy Office for holding the belief that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Later on, you'll find out that Copernicus was actually the one who was involved in this work as well. Galileo was the first person to report telescopic observations of the mountains on the moon, the moons of Jupiter, the phases of Venus, and the rings of Saturn. He invented an early microscope and the predecessors of the thermometer, along with the stars of the Milky Way. His greatest achievement was his use of a telescope to examine the sky. Some fun facts about him is that he studied speed and velocity, gravity and freefall, the principle of relativity, inertia, projectile motion, and he also worked in applied science and technology, describing the properties of pendulum and hydrostatic balances. He invented various military compasses, and he had 5 siblings, and the youngest being Michelangelo. Moving on to Michelangelo. He was born March 6, 1475, and died February 18, 1564. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and a poet of the High Renaissance. He was considered the greatest living artist in his lifetime and one of the greatest artists of all time. He was the first Western artist whose biography was published while he was alive. At age 13, he was apprenticed to the cities of Florence's most prominent painter, Domenico Ghirlandaio, for a 3-year term. Some of his best work was the frescoes on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, the crucifixion of St. Peter, and the Pieta, which is an emblem of the Catholic devotion, David and Goliath, the creation of Adam, and many, many more. His first painting was the Torment of St. Anthony. He was also a Catholic. Michelangelo's nose was actually broken by a rival artist. Some people first heard of him because of fraud. He created art for 9 different popes. His favorite color was actually orange. Ironic. He also had blue eyes, which is also ironic. And his last words were, "I'm still learning." This time, I'm actually not joking. He actually said that on his deathbed. Anyways, he also suffered from high-functioning autism called Asperger's syndrome. Moving on to Leonardo da Vinci, born April 15th, 1452, and died May 2nd, 1519. Leonardo da Vinci was the most influenced artist in history, and he lived in the golden age of creativity along with others that contributed to his unique creations. Not only did he study drawings, painting, and sculpting, he gained a diverse knowledge in mechanics, carpentry, metallurgy, architectural drafting, and chemistry, which created a name well suited for him, the Renaissance man. If Renaissance Age was a magazine, Leonardo da Vinci would be on the front cover. Oh wait, he is. Moving on to his best works, his most famous painting of all is the Mona Lisa, created in 1503 to 19. This is one of the world's most famous artworks, and is known for its mysterious gaze and a smile that leaves the piece open for the audience to wander through their imagination. It's located in Louvre Museum in Paris, France. Some fun facts about this painting is that Mona Lisa may be unfinished. This was also believed to be a self-portrait, and her name actually isn't Mona Lisa. Moving on to some of his other best creations, The Last Supper was another one of his most famous paintings in the world, from 1495 to 1498, and it's located in Santa Maria del Grazi. Da Vinci used a hammer and nails to get this perspective just right, and this masterpiece was repainted, tampered with, and almost destroyed countless times. Another painting that he has is the Vitruvian Man, created 1490, and it symbolizes connecting man to nature. This reflected in macrocosm, which is a small representative of something big with a complex structure, hence the man in nature or the universe. Some designs that he has created is the design of the helicopter inspired from children bamboo toys, sketches of fetus developments, which is fetuses in the womb, which was important because vernaculars were just starting to rise. He also sketched numerous drawings of machines such as automobiles, flying cars, landscapes, and his numerous portraits that don't concern machinery. I don't know who could beat Leonardo da Vinci, but now we're moving on to Nicholas Copernicus, which was born February 19th, 1473, and died May 24th, 1543. He was a mathematician, astronomer, and studied economics, medicine, and politics. His mother and father had 4 children, of which he was the youngest. Not to mention he looks like Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Nicholas Copernicus proposed that the universe was heliocentric, meaning the Earth and everything else revolved around the sun, opposed to the contrary belief that the Earth was the center of everything and the sun and the planets revolved around the Earth. This went on to the Copernicus revolution and influenced many astronomers, which came out to a shift in the astronomy field to deepen our understanding of the universe. Although going against the Catholic Church's beliefs at the time would cost a great deal of punishment, he published this book. Although going against the Catholic Revolution beliefs at the time would cost a great deal of punishment, he published his book on his deathbed. On the other hand, Galileo was tried because he shared the same belief. In result of his discoveries, he discovered 3 laws that we still use today regarding the planets interacting with the sun. Copernicus was also an author and published many works, including 3 Copernican treatises, Commentarilius, Philosophers of Science, On the Revolution's manuscript, and he also constructed an economical theory on money and ultimately guided many people to financial security. Overall, he impacted many people and many subjects and influenced our world today. Last, but certainly not least, we have William Shakespeare. He was born on April 23rd, 1564, and died on April 23rd, 1616. William Shakespeare was a poet and an actor. He was known as the greatest English writer, and his spouse, Anne Hathaway, which died on 1616 as well, and his children were Hamnet Shakespeare, Susanna Hall, and Judith Quinney. His real name is Guilliamus Shakespeare. He had 7 siblings, was married at 18, and his mother made gloves for a living. Fun fact, his last words were, "Live in thy shame, but not die, not shame with thee. These words hereafter thy torments be. Convey me to my bed, then to my grave. Love they to live that love and honor have." Just kidding. That's a Romeo and Juliet line. But that'd be cool though, huh? Some of his most famous works include Hamlet, which is not only his most famous play, but also the most complex. It's a type of revenge tragedy where Hamlet is looking for revenge against his uncle Claudius, his father's murderer, who is also the king of Denmark. Romeo and Juliet is also another one of his famous plays. It's a romance tragedy between 2 Italian teens whose families are feuding. They find each other, one fake dies, so one kills himself, and then the fake dead one dies anyways. It's a classic that gets replayed many, many times to show the chaos and passion of being in love. Shakespeare was an important part of the Renaissance era because he partook in the start of writing in the vernacular. A vernacular is writing in common knowledge because back then the books could only be understood by priests and wealthy powers. He wrote about 15 novels including Hamlet, Tempest, Othello, The Merchant of Venice, The Comedy of Errors, and he also wrote about 37 plays and collaborated with several more. Some include the complete works of Shakespeare, Richard II, and Timon of Athens. Now, obviously, these aren't all the people who were involved in the Renaissance era. They were just some of the important ones that pioneered through this time. So I hope you enjoyed our video, and I hope you learned something. And if you hear any background noises or weird noises, Shout out to Miss Castro's class because I filmed all the voiceovers in that class.